Hey everybody, this is Rusty again with Collector Auctions. Today is part 2 of my trip to Baltimore Comic-Con for this year. In the first video, I showed you some of the prints and some of the autographs that I got at the con. Today, I'm going to go through some of the key books that I picked up and talk about some of these books and why I was getting them. So let's get started. Alright, so I was very specific in what I was getting this year. I was focused on certain X-Men books, Fantastic Four, Avengers, and there were some other ones that were sort of in the periphery, but I try to stick really to a certain set of books, some of which strayed off a little bit, but because I've been working on some of these books over the last year, submitting to CGC, getting things slabbed and graded, learning how to clean and press books. I was very concentrated. I had really focused on certain books that I was looking for. And some of these, again, I said, some of these I didn't know I was going to actually pick up, but a bunch of them, this is what I was looking for, and I stayed pretty focused. As much as I wanted to pick up certain wall books, I mean, there was one stand that had a beautiful Avengers Number 55, the first appearance of Ultron, that was just absolutely gorgeous, but if I had bought that book for that price, and it was a great price, don't get me wrong, I probably would have got the books that I did pick up. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the X-Men. So first one I have here is X-Men 164. This is the first appearance of Binary, who of course is Carol Danvers, who is Captain Marvel. So this is another one of her incarnations. And this was the first appearance of her in that. Okay, and then we have X-Men 184. This is the first appearance of Forge. And then we have X-Men 205. I'm not sure if this is a first appearance or anything, but this is a highly sought after book because of the Barry Windsor Smith artwork. It's an absolutely gorgeous story if you've never read that. It's absolutely just a stunning book. Okay, and then we have X-Men 207. Now, all these books that I picked up, I was highly critical of them. I stared, I looked, I used the light to try to pick up spine ticks. I did my best to try to pick up really good copies. If you happen to see price tags on some of these, most of the places, unless I just picked up one single book, I tried to package the books together to get a better deal. So it didn't cost me quite as much as what some of the price tags will say. This is X-Men 210. I'm sorry, is that 211? Wait a minute. I'm sorry, 211, my fault. And I picked up 212, and of course 213. Now, everybody knows that this is the first Wolverine Sabretooth fight, the first time they were on the cover together. I had just recently got both of these graded by CGC. They were my own personal books. I know they both had defects on them. I got a 9.0 on this one. And I was expecting something lower. There was a lot of color rub on the back, and I certainly was looking for a better copy of this one. The issue 212 here, my own copies, there was a couple color breaking spine ticks that I couldn't do much with, but I still got some pretty good grades on those. And again, I was looking for better copies for my own collection, so that's what I was looking for all of these. So those are some really nice issues that I picked up there. All right, again, let's see what we got. Issue 225. And here's 234. That's a really great Wolverine cover here. And then I picked up 241. That's I think this is somewhat of a Madeline Pryor key issue. And another great Wolverine cover was issue 251. Now this one, I was definitely on the looks. I was out looking for this book. This is 256, the first appearance of Psylocke as Lady Mandarin. Beautiful Jim Lee artwork. In my previous video, you saw that I got my own original first copy that came back as a 9.6. I think I had two of them, 9.6s. They were beautiful. I was learning to press, clean and press. I thought those books were immaculate. I would have put them at 9.8 all day. I definitely missed something. I'm not sure exactly what. Maybe I'll get greater notes on it someday, but I really wanted both of those to have 9.8s on it. So I was on the outlook, looking out for this issue in particular at the show for my own personal collection. This issue looked really good. And then the last two X-Men I got was the first full appearance of Bishop. This is 280. What is this? 283. And I was also looking for 282 as well, but the price on 282 for the conditions I was finding didn't quite match up as much as I'd like, so I passed on a lot of those. But 283, this one looked really good. And then the last X-Men book I picked up was another X-Men Adventures number 1. And if you watched my previous video, you saw that I got two of these graded. One of them came back as a 9.8, which was fantastic. The other one came back with color touch on the cover, and I'm still trying to find out where it is. So that was a real disappointment. The grade was okay, but the color touch on there just took me by surprise. So I found another copy. When I found this and it looked really clean, I figured, okay, let's try to get another one. I may end up getting this one graded as well and eventually selling that one. Okay, so I was also looking for some Spider-Man books, and I found a really nice copy of 239, the second appearance of Hobgoblin. And I've got my own copy of that out at CGC right now. It has been there since April. They're working on it. They're cleaning and pressing it. I don't expect a high grade on it. It was my original copy from the day. It was a newsstand. I believe it was a newsstand. I expect it to be okay, but I don't think anything above a 9.4 at the most, my guess. But this one looked really clean, and the price was really good. And again, I packaged this up with a bunch of other books to lower the price, so I was happy with that. This looked really nice. All right, continuing with Spider-Man and some more Hobgoblin, I picked up 244, 245. Again, early appearances, minor keys, just beautiful copies. I didn't spend a lot on either one of them, but both of them look really nice. Now, most of these books I'm going to end up pressing, cleaning and pressing, and if I end up submitting them to CGC, I know there's pretty good value in just about every one of these books if they grade high enough. So that's what I was looking for. I was looking for high grades on these without breaking the bank. And I picked up 250 and 251. So it's another great Hobgoblin pair there. Now, I saw some crazy prices on 250. I mean, I saw one book I saw in particular. It was really nice, but I couldn't quite put the price they were asking for it, especially an ungraded one. All right, so continuing with Spider-Man, I've got the 258 and 259. It was another pretty good pair to put together and everything. You see Spider-Man back in his original costume. And I think this is starting to become a pretty hot key right now. This is where I think they separate the costume from Spider-Man and everything. And they find out that it's an alien. I think that's the issue. Am I wrong? Correct me on that if I'm wrong. But these are some pretty nice minor key issues as well. Okay, and then one of my favorite storylines of all time was Craven's Last Hunt. And this is Amazing Spider-Man 293 and 294. And both of these are just absolutely beautiful copies. The black can be unforgiving on the edge of the spine, so I was finding a lot of these copies. Get the glare off of that there. You would find these just about everywhere, but you would find spine ticks just popping out. Both of these copies are very clean, so really happy with both of those. And I ended up getting the 2 issues from that same series, from the same storyline, 31 and 32 of Web of Spider-Man. So all in all, I picked up 4 of the 6 issues. Now, I did see the Spectacular Spider-Man issues out there as well. I didn't find clean copies of either one of those, so I didn't pick up any extras of those. But all 4 of these ended up looking really nice. I've got copies of these that I'm not sure if I've got them all signed or most of them, but I think I've got all of these signed by Mike Zeck and John Beatty. All right, so that was the end of the Spider-Man issues. Let's go over to the Fantastic Four. So I was picking up a lot of John Byrne artwork storylines here. This is 239 with Nova on the cover there. Frankie Ray. I think this is going to become a pretty hot character. You're starting to hear that she's being spec'd on an awful lot for the MCU. We'll see. So I picked this issue up. I think this is her origin story. This isn't any first appearance, but it's definitely an origin story. Now, 2 of the books that I was hyper looking for in the show, the second of the 2 especially, was 243 and 244. And I was able to find 243 pretty good at the show. Pretty clean copies I was finding. Some of the copies I was finding, you could see that the books had aged. The whites weren't quite as white on this cover. But I ended up finding a really nice copy right here. But the one that I was extremely trying to find, I was really trying to find this issue and trying to find a high grade at a good cost, was this one here. This is where Frankie Ray basically becomes Nova and becomes the Herald of Galactus. And this is a hot book right now. I was surprised that I didn't see more of this book. I would have expected at this point that this book would have made the transition from the boxes to the walls, but I didn't. Not once did I see this on the wall. I found probably not more than a half a dozen copies throughout the whole show this time of this particular book. Everyone I found had some issues on it. This one has a couple of spine ticks on it that are pretty minor. This one was I got this one. This was the best looking one I could find. This was a really good price on this. Really good price on this, considering, because I saw some that were in much worse shape that were 2x, 3x as much as this book. This one, they had a price of $15 on there. Again, I bundled that and probably got it for a few dollars less than that. But this book right here, I saw this price really was taking off, and for the condition that some of the other books were in, I just couldn't justify it. All right, continue with the Fantastic Four. Here's a copy of 246. This is the Too Many Dooms, the part of the Doctor Doom storyline. I was hoping to find 247, and I could have sworn that I had picked that up and at least bought one copy of it, but I went through the books the other night when I got back from the show, and lo and behold, I didn't have it. So I've got my own. I still have all of these books in my collections. It's not like I don't have a copy of it, but I was looking for high grades of everything, and I guess whichever one was in my hand at the time wasn't quite high enough. So I've got the 246. And then I found a really nice copy of 249. This is where they're battling Gladiator. And this was a really nice copy. I found a lot of these this copy right here, the whites again suffer with age. I see a lot of aging on the white on these. But this was a beautiful copy. And then continuing with that, I've got the follow-up to the rest of the Doom storyline. I found 258. This is probably one of my favorite Doctor Doom stories, actual issues with him in it. But I love the storyline. So I ended up with all 3 of the issues for this particular story arc. There's 259. And of course 260. And all 3 of these were beautiful. I paid really good price on these. We didn't pay too much, but these are extremely clean copies. And then the last Fantastic Four that I bought was 262, The Trial of Reed Richards. And again, this was a hard issue to find at the show that was completely clean. This red is unforgiving. If you get the slightest little spine tick, the white shows through it pretty good. But I found a very nice copy. I didn't pay a lot for this one. Okay, so the ones I want to show you that I've got left there's some Avengers in here, but there's some other key issues that I picked up. Some of them some of these I was not looking for, but when I stumbled across them, they were pretty good prices. In my previous videos, people will know that one of the projects I've been working on since I started cleaning and pressing my own books, even before that I was submitting some of these books to be worked on by CGC, was the Marvel Comics Presents issues by Barry Windsor Smith with Weapon X. And I've been really good with my cleaning and pressing. I've gotten 9/8s and 9/6s out of some of them. There's been a couple that have dipped down to a 9/4, which is a little surprising. I think I've actually got this one. This one's issue 79. I think I've got it submitted right now. I'm not sure. I don't remember it sitting in the collection at the moment, but this one was very nice. There's no spine ticks on it at all, so we will give a better inspection of it at some point. That was a pretty good price on this. Now, these books are pretty valuable if you can get a 9/8 on them. It really drops off after that. All right, here's a issue of Avengers. New Avengers number 11. I think this is... What's the key on this? Is this when they reveal that it's Hawkeye? I'm not sure. Or is this the first Hawkeye is Ronin? I'm not sure. If you can let me know, that'd be great. Leave a comment in the comments section and help me out there. But that was a really nice copy. I found a few of these at the show. I wasn't going to go heavy and buy multiples of some of these, but this one I ended up buying. I just bought the one on this one. Now, a lot of these issues that you're seeing me buy, I actually did find multiple copies of a lot of them. And I did buy multiple copies on a bunch of them. And this was a very expensive show. But I think the return on the investment is going to be great on this haul. We'll see. That's the idea. This was John Byrne's X-Men. This is number 14. And I think that what's so important about this, I think it's the first appearance of Hellboy in the comic. There's a poster in one of the panels in the background that mentions Hellboy. I think that's it. Again, if you know more about the story on this one than I do, I know this is a pretty valuable book. I submitted this book to CGC and got a 9/6 on it. I cleaned and pressed that one, and I thought it was much better than what the grade was. I would have put that as a 9/8 all day long, but I had a 9/6 on that one, and when I saw this looked really clean. I guess some of that OCD kicks in, and I'm going to get that 9/8 eventually. Now, this one I found, it's Infamous Iron Man number 1 with Doom taking over as Tony Stark. I think this is the first appearance of Tony Stark AI that people are specking on because of the Ironheart series that they're going to have on MCU, or on the Disney Plus, I should say. Now, I had submitted this, my own copy. It's probably one of my best successes. It was little bit of rough shape. I had submitted to CGC. I worked on it. It was early in my work on that, and I worked on it and I worked on it, and I ended up with a 9.6 on that. That's a very, very good grade on that. I happened across this one at a pretty good price, and I said, well, let's see if we can get a 9.8 on that eventually. So real happy to have another copy of that to work on there. Here's another copy that was in my collection that I had actually got a 9.8 on. It was my original one, and I found this. This was just popped up in the back of a box as I'm going through it, and it kind of yelled at me and said, "Hey, buy me!" So I ended up buying this. This is Legends, from the DC miniseries. This is the first appearance of Amanda Waller, and if you've watched any of the Suicide Squad films, any of the Justice League animated series, you know she is a major player in the DC universe. This is her first comic appearance. And this copy right here is beautiful. Just absolutely, I don't see any defects down the spine or anywhere on the cover on this at all. So I picked that up at a really decent price. Now here's a book that I've been buying a few copies when I find them at really good prices. And this is, this is Batman 457. I think this is the first Tim Drake as Robin. And these aren't too expensive, but they are key comic books for the character. So I've been picking up some of these. My original copy in this had a nice water stain on the back of it, so I had always been looking to replace it with a better copy anyway. So I think I ended up buying about 2 or 3 of these throughout the show. All right, so getting away from Marvel and DC a little bit, I've got Grendel #1. This is Matt Wagner's comic from Comico, although I always called it Comico back in the day. Comico, I guess. I've got this copy. It's actually in there right now. I had thought about submitting it to CBCS to have it graded and authenticated. I've had Matt Wagner sign that many years ago at this point, when I'd seen him earlier at a Baltimore Comic Con. But it was just a little bit rougher than I like, and I had used a silver paint pen, and as I was expecting the book, there was some silver paint on the back of the book that I didn't particularly like. Other than that, the book looked beautiful. I did do a quick press on there, and there's really no other defects other than some of the paint smudge that I wasn't really happy with. So I pulled it back from the collection, but from sending it out. But when I found this at a decent price, I'm going, okay, Matt Wagner has been somebody who shows up at the Baltimore Comic Con over the years. If he's back again, I'll have him sign this one as well. And then I found a really good copy of Thor 339. This is of course, I've got this book in my collection. I've got it signed by Walt Simonson. It's a beautiful copy, but this one looked beautiful as well. It was a great price. And again, I bought this at the end of the show when I really should have been, okay, stop buying. And I ran across it at a good price, and I'm going, okay, there's some value in that. Let's go ahead and get it. And here's a book that I never had. And this one I got at a really good price. I believe this is the first appearance as Monica Rambeau as Photon. Of course, everybody knows her now from the WandaVision series. I don't think they'll come around to making her Captain Marvel in the comic book, but I gotta admit, she's probably my favorite female Captain Marvel from the comics. She was an Avenger for a long time. She was chairman. She led the Avengers even. And that was during a period that I just adored the Avenger books, because for a long run there in the 200s, from about 256, 255, 3, 4, somewhere like that, all the way up to about 300, John Buscema and Tom Palmer were the artists on the book, and absolutely my favorite artist team out there. And Captain Marvel was front and center throughout the whole thing. She played a key role throughout most of that series during those issues. And anyway, this book hit. I never, when the WandaVision series came out, I never had it. So when I saw this, picked it up. All right, guys, the last of the books that I want to show off today that I picked up, these are Avenger books. And they ended up being pretty good keys. Now, this one here, I wasn't on the outlook for, but when I ran across it at a really good price, I jumped on it. This right here is the Young Avengers number 6. I think this is the, am I wrong? Is this the first appearance of Stature in the comic? I know there's a key appearance in there of that, but I had sent this one out as a book that I had worked on and graded. It was one of my worst grades on something I felt should have graded better, but I ended up with a 9.4 on my own personal copy that I had submitted to CGC. So great price. It would give me an opportunity. It's going to give me an opportunity to try to improve on that grade. So I ended up picking up another New Avengers book. This is number 27. And I'd been on the outlook for this book. That book is sitting in there right next to the press. It was an early book that I had worked on. I had a crease, and I don't know how that crease, it wasn't just a finger crease, it was a little bit, but it kind of buckled a little bit. There's a little spot here in the red on the ninjas that I worked and I worked and I worked to try to get that out. I got it out as good as I thought I was going to get to, and I went back in and added a little bit of heat, seeing if that would help out. And during trying to rub it out or press it out and everything, I ended up doing a little bit of a color rub on that spot. And you don't notice it straight on, but you notice it if you turn it at the angle and you see it and you're going, oh, there's that. It really sticks out at that point. And it wasn't going to grade well. And I had regrets on that book because I had worked on that book with issue number 26. And 26 I submitted, it got the 9.8 on it. I was real happy with that, but I was regretting not being able to get this one. I'm not going to submit my own personal copy of that, but I was on the outlook for this one. And so I ended up finding this looked like a really nice copy. There's no spine ticks on the edge over here. So that's a book that will end up getting resubmitted to CGC. Now here's a book that I've got in my collection. I'm actually working on it right now, but it's not the best condition. Again, for my own personal collection off the newsstand, that had a couple of spine ticks that I'm working out. But when I found this at a decent price, I figured I'd pick this one up too. I think this is the first Captain Marvel Monica Rambeau in the Avenger books, I think. So I went ahead and picked this up. This is issue 227. And this is a book I saw at the show a lot that people had, in worse conditions, had much higher prices on it. So that was one of the things I was looking at the show, was looking at prices at this booth compared to that booth. And if I felt like it was a good value, I would usually just go ahead and pick it up at that point, because I've learned that if you leave something behind, it will be gone by the time you get back usually. But if my gut told me, it's like, wow, you're paying too much for this at this grade, then I backed away. So another book that I was actually really on the lookout for, because I was surprised that I didn't have it in my collection. I know I have it as a reader comic, because I remember having the comic back in the day, but it wasn't in the collection as a higher grade book, was Avengers 187. And this was, I ended up finding a bunch of books like this. So I actually bought a couple really good copies of this. This is I guess the end of the storyline with Wanda learning their origins, and I guess it's you see the origins of the Darkhold and everything at WandaVision in the TV series. I guess they're going to play off of. This is the stories that they came from. So I was real happy to add this right here to the collection. And this one actually was, all of these were actually decent prices. But I ended up finding the issue previous to that. This is 186. And I've already got a really good copy of that. This was a much better copy than the one that I have. And I got a great price from the vendor on this. I was real happy with this. We're gonna give this a nice press. There's no spine tick damage on this. So I'm going to be real excited about getting this one submitted eventually. All right, guys, the last book I want to show off for today I ended up paying a little bit more money on this, and it's because that I had some regrets in a recent CGC order. I had 3 of my copies that I had sent in. It had all 3 of them I thought looked really good. I thought all 3 of them were 9.8 candidates. There was nothing obvious that stuck out. I ended up getting 9.6s on 2 of the 3, and I think a 9.4 on 1. And I kind of questioned my own eye on that a little bit, like what did I miss? But I ended up buying what looked like a really nice copy of 257. This is the first appearance of Nebula in comics. This is, again, another one of those issues that I absolutely adore. It's John Buscema, Tom Palmer that we just talked about. It's the middle of their run. Love this issue. Love the artwork. Paid just this one and the Avengers 186 that I just showed you were probably the 2 most expensive books that I bought. But as you can see, I ended up buying a lot of books at this show. So, while I didn't go for a major key, I kind of went for what I felt like were minor keys at really good values. And I ended up with a pretty hefty, sizable amount of comic books by the time I was finished. All of them are spec-worthy to some degree, and I was real happy with everything. This one I was real happy with. We will get that out. We'll get that pressed and cleaned again, and we'll end up resubmitting this. Hopefully get a 9.8 eventually. But, guys, that is what I picked up. Those are the comics I picked up. There were other minor books I picked up. Some of the things, just to go over real quick, some of the things I picked up were, that I'm not showing, were a lot of these facsimile books that have become popular over the last so many years. I'm not going to go over every one of those, but I know I picked up the first appearance of Batgirl, an Action Comics #1 that was from, I think it was a Loot Crate exclusive version. I'm trying to think. There were some Batman, there were some, I'm not even sure. There were some other facsimiles I picked up. I picked up some of the Alex Ross timeless covers to some books that I didn't have. I had the Silver Surfer, the Captain America, the She-Hulk. I picked up some of those. Those are all minor books, mostly just for the collection. And that was pretty much it. But guys, I want to give a shout out though to a couple of vendors in particular. First off was Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. They're out of Charlotte, North Carolina. If you know anything about things, they are the ones who host the Heroes Con in June every year. Wonderful con. It's very much just like the Baltimore Comic Con, where the concentration is completely on comic books. You may have some celebrities that show up that have things to do with comics, but it is a comic book centric con, just like Baltimore Comic Con. And the quality at that booth was really good. The values were pretty good. I was real happy. They were very friendly. They helped out wherever you needed. Very accommodating. But as I said, the cost on the books and the conditions were really good. The other place that I really enjoyed was a place called J&S Collectibles. I would say I'm not sure if it was a majority, but a bunch of the books I got there, I ended up going back to their booth over the course of 3 days, probably 4 to 5 times, kind of picking and choosing until I got everything I wanted. But it was a lot of the books that you just saw were right out of their bins. They, to me, had the best books at great value. The values on their books, they weren't priced to price you out of the show. They weren't sitting there trying to take advantage of some semi-key book. They didn't try to overcharge you. It didn't feel like. And that's why I kept going back to them. There were a couple of places that I did buy a few books from, but you could tell that the books that they had picked out were definitely the keys, but they were charging near slab prices for raw books. They knew what they were doing. They knew these are key books. People were interested in them, and they were trying to take a full advantage of that and get as much money as possible. I don't blame them for that, but I didn't buy as much from them because they were doing that. But J&S Collectibles were great. They'd work with you. I'd bring a pile of books, and I was like, hey, what can you do for this? And most of the time it was 10 to 15% at least off of the order and everything. So it worked out really well with them. Now, the last place that I want to mention, and they have a social media presence that I think they're on Facebook, and they do Facebook Live auctions. I ended up getting the Avengers 186 from these guys. Was a place called Hooked on Comics. I think they're out of New Jersey. A couple great guys. I watched their live show. I was looking at that 186, and I was hemming and hawing on it, and he said, well, we're going to do a live show tonight, and they had a couple copies of it. One of them didn't sell, and they ended up saving that one for me the next day, and that was really nice of those guys. I showed up on Sunday morning, and first thing I did was went to the booth, and they already had it labeled, here, Rusty, this is your book, and they knocked a few dollars off, and it was nice. It was a great value for that book. If it hadn't been towards the end of the show when I found these guys, I'm sure a lot more of my money would have went to them. They had some really great books. They had a Spider-Man 134, the first appearance of Tarantula, that if I had seen it, I don't think it sold in the auction I was watching on Saturday night, but if I had seen it when I went back to the booth on Sunday, I was going to probably inquire about it and then spend a lot more money. But so maybe it was a good thing I didn't see it. But anyway, shout out to those guys. I'm going to continue following them on Facebook and check out some of the live auctions. I know they're going to start getting into Whatnot, do some auctions on there as well. So anyway, I want to shout out to all three of those great vendors. And I want to give a shout out to Cards, Comics, and Collectibles out of Reisterstown, Maryland. Those guys run this show. They run the Baltimore Comic Con. This is their show. They run this every year. The show's gone for over 20 years, I think, at this point. Wonderful show. They've pretty much stayed true to being comic related, like as I was talking about earlier. They do a great job. Great time. Can't wait to go next year. I think it's going to be over just about Halloween next year. It's going to be at the end of October, so a little bit later. It shifts weeks depending on their being able to get the Baltimore Comic Convention, or excuse me, the Baltimore Convention Center. So anyway, I'm looking forward to next year. Frank Miller is supposed to be there next year. He's supposed to be at this one, but he had canceled, and he's supposed to be back next year, so I'm definitely going to be going next year. So anyway, guys, that is what I picked up at the Baltimore Comic Con for this year. If you guys like this kind of content, and you want to comment, you want to make a comment about any of the books that I picked up, hey, leave a comment in the comment section. If you like, as I said, if you like this kind of content, hit the like, subscribe button so you'll be alerted to other videos I'm going to do. I've got more CGC unboxings that I'm getting ready to shoot here in the next few days. CGC has been sending a lot of books back in. It has their schedule and getting books back is really strange right now, but I just got an order in last night from them that I sent in 3 weeks ago, and it wasn't fast-tracked. So anyway, I'll be interested. Hopefully you guys will watch those videos as well. So anyway, guys, take care, and if you want to contact me with any of the books, if you're interested in any of the books, you can always contact me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com. It's all one word, no hyphen or anything. So, and in the comments section, there's a link to these as well. So, guys, have a great day. Take care.